Jacob, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
How would you explain the emotion of achieving a childhood dream and getting selected to play professional AFL?
I guess the word that comes to mind is probably euphoric. For someone like me personally, I think being drafted at 22 and spending probably majority of my teenage years being constantly doubted, questioned, um, I guess ridiculed and being told you're not good enough for so long, but always keeping the faith and the belief that it is going to reward you one day. It was a very euphoric moment and it felt deserved, like it felt like it was meant to be, and achieving that long-standing goal was meant to be, and it was an incredibly proud moment, and yeah, one of those moments you just never forget.
You got picked up in the mid-season draft and at 22. Obviously, a lot of guys that are coming through and wanting to get drafted as kids are hoping to get drafted around 18 to 19 years of age, sometimes 17.
Yeah,
How did you keep that belief from sort of that expected age to 22?
I think it comes down to a number of different things. I think the will to want to do it, like genuinely want to achieve it. For me personally, I always wanted my life to mean something to me. I always wanted to. I guess, well, I'll revert back in another different frame. My biggest fear is getting to an age of 40, 50, 60 and going, what if? And I think growing up, I was probably in an environment where I met a lot of different people like that. And I was amongst a lot of adults and people who would constantly talk like that and say, I wish I did this. I could have done this if I chose to do that. There was just so much regret and pain in it. And I remember growing up throughout that age, I was like, well, no matter what happens to me personally, whatever setbacks it is, I refuse to be that sort of person, or I guess a product of that environment. And football for me I loved it ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. In high school, I was not a bad kid, but I just wasn't very driven in other areas other than football. Like I'd wait till recess and lunch to go play footy. That was kind of my day. And so I didn't really have a lot of other alternatives. As I got older, I did, and I balanced myself out really well, and that essentially helped me. But I guess what drives me is the faith that one day it is all going to come to fruition, and the feeling of that is going to far outweigh the setbacks and the pain that I had to endure to get there. And I was right. Like the day that we got there, it's amazing because it never goes the way you exactly imagine it to go. And mid-season draft was never the way I imagined it when I was a teenage boy and Richmond and all the rest of it. But it's amazing just that accomplishment. Like it feels like you hit the peak of the mountain. You're finally there. And yeah, I think the word I said earlier, euphoric, was the best word to describe it.
Did you getting selected change any of your personal relationships or how people treated you?
I don't think so. I think one thing I did really well was create my inner circle, and I was very understanding of who was genuinely happy for me and who was, I guess, tagging along for the ride. I think I did that really well as just a normal human being. Like quite a deep thinker. I'm probably more of a leader aspect in a lot of my groups and really try and be a bit of a vocal point and be that sort of person. So I wouldn't say my relationships necessarily changed. I wouldn't say I changed either. I just got to a point where I wanted to be. And it was just a feeling of being genuinely proud of what I did and what I was able to do. And I guess the even more satisfying part is the people who were there from day one get to now celebrate it too. And that was obviously draft night. Friends I've known for a long time. And just even people I grew up with, they have the ability now to go, I know that guy, or I went to school with him, and kind of create those stories together. And that's the most satisfying part. Being able to share that, but also have that influence with people as well. But I guess to answer your question, no, like I was fully aware of who's in the corner and who's not, or who would be, would despise or not be happy to see it. But I think ultimately a lot of people who understand me as a person, my story, felt genuine happiness because I never once took the easy route, never cheated, never took it the easy way. It was just the hardest way possible. And it was constant pain and struggle and always just enduring and trying to overcome doubts of other people and external noise and constantly being told you're not good enough. So I think a lot of people would admire it more than they'd criticize it.
I think there's a real powerful thing about being able to say that you've made people proud of you. I think that's probably what everyone wants to do
Yeah,
subconsciously, even if you're doing it for yourself. I think you always want people to be proud. You
100%.
you mentioned people who doubted you. How did you deal with that internally? Was it a bit of fire in the belly, or was it something that you just completely blocked out?
I guess it's a combination of things because growing up, I always felt like, I don't want this to sound overly sentimental, but I always felt like my life was meant to mean something more than just the bare minimum to me. So I always grew up with the belief that I wanted to achieve something more than just the bare minimum. And I grew up in a lot of different places and had a lot of different experiences growing up. So I guess overcoming it, I always just believed in myself. I believed in the work they did, and a framework that I kind of use is build your evidence. And essentially that is showing yourself that you are worthy or you are good enough. So I guess it came down to little things like if I was willing to wake up at 6 a.m. and run before school. In Albany, I remember we lived slightly out of town up near, it was Baker's Junction near this roadhouse. And I would wake up at 5, 6 in the morning before school and run up and down the highway, and there'd be road trains flying past and cars and all the rest of it. But it was just that evidence I built in myself to know that I will be good enough. May not be now, and that's okay, but eventually I will be. And then when it's my time to shine, I'll shine brightest. So the faith was always there, but I always believed internally it was something I was meant to do or I was good enough to do. I was understanding that at 14, 15, 16, I'm not that superstar. I'm not going to be that kid who's going to go at 18. But I feel like seeing other people do it at my age, or some people I didn't necessarily believe were miles better than me, I always believe once my time comes, I'll shine brightest, like I said. So I guess it's the faith, but also just I also have a faith in God as well, and believe that the plan for me was always to eventually get there. It was going to be hard and it was going to be difficult, but I think now if I didn't endure that, I wouldn't be here doing a podcast, or I wouldn't just have an influence and be somewhat of a role model to younger people and younger athletes. So yeah, I always refer to it as God's plan and keep the faith internally, but also spiritually as well.
Growing up in Albany, was there anyone in particular that had a major or lasting impact on you that you still carried over into that professional level? Any lessons that you learnt?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think I had a few different turning points in my career, and I think everyone does as well. But I had a lot of family friends who were very good for me down at my old footy club. A lot of coaches, I had a family friend named Ray Ewan he played a bit of waffle in the past. I never really quite had someone in my family who I guess had achieved that or played at that sort of level. So I always was really gravitated towards someone who had, because as a kid, all I wanted was someone who had done it to be able to mentor me and do that. And he is one of them, and he still to this day is. One of the biggest turning points though was I had a mate named Kyle, and this is kind of where the training element came into my career. He was training to be a runner, but at the time we played footy together, just like under 16s, I believe it was. And I got to a point where I was getting really insecure because I knew he was doing all this training outside of it, and he was super fit and fast and all the rest of it. And I got really insecure because I thought at the time what I was doing was training hard and just having a kick in the back. And I thought I was outworking everyone. But little do I know, once I joined him and saw what he did, it really broadened my perspective. So we came really close for a while. And at the time, I thought he was training for footy. So it got me really worried because I didn't really want him to be better than me. And all the rest was that competitive edge. And I eventually found out as we got closer and closer and trained more together, he was training to be a state runner, wanted to make the state team and run for WA. And I guess we both put our goals together, and I want to be a footballer, he wanted to be a runner. We just trained together. We did all sorts of sessions. And it really ingrained me. It was about 15, 16, I think. It just really ingrained that work ethic and going over and beyond and hurting the body a bit, but also it's probably the mental side, pushing through the pain barrier and doing a longer lasting session. And he, for me, was a huge turning point because he pushed me, but also showed me the different levels to it. And funnily enough, I think it was less than a year later, probably 6 to 8 months, he ended up making the state squad for running and I made it for football. And mine was completely left field, not expected. But just from that little period of a change of perspective, but it's seeing what real professional standards are, it just pushed me in a different different perspective altogether. And mentally, I kind of reset and reinvented the way I played, and it only got better from there. But that was one of a few turning points in my career for sure.
I don't think there's anything better than friendly competition. Someone who
100%.
comes in and actually really challenges you. I think I'm incredibly fortunate, the mates that I have around me, that all of us just want to get better. You know, we're willing to
Yeah.
push each other. Me and my best mate Hendo at the moment, we're trying to train for a marathon, and then
Unreal. Yeah.
trying to sort of get the courage as well to say that we want to do the half Ironman at the end of the
Yeah.
year. But it's those relationships that push you to become better, push you to just challenge yourself in a different way. Both coming from a cricket and footy background, just wanting to see each other do more as well, but also not wanting them to do better than you. I think
Yeah.
a great sort of line is just birds of a feather flock together. If you hang out with losers, you're going to become a loser. If you hang out with blokes and people that are genuinely trying to get better, chances are you're going to be persuaded into doing a little bit more with them.
100%. Having people around you who lift you up, or yeah, like you said, friendly fire competing, is so much more healthy for you. And even if at times where it feels like, they're being harsh on you, or, they're doing things that you probably don't like them doing at the time, it comes from a place of care. I've always said, it's quite a little, I guess, a quote or a code that I live by too, is your real friends will talk shit to your face, but praise you behind your back. Your fake ones will praise you to your face, talk shit behind your back. Basically what it means is the friend who can keep you accountable, tell you the harsh truth, probably hurt your feelings, but it's for the greater good of you, is typically the friends that are going to uplift you and get you where you want to go. That is something I'm very aware of, and not everyone has to be aligned or have the same goals as you, but having those friends who can go and just get there and tell you, like, this is what I think, this is where I think you're going. It is so healthy for you, even at times when it may hurt. So yeah, maybe it's just some male code, maybe it's something that all young men should do, but yeah, creating that inner circle, it's a very powerful thing.
You get drafted to Richmond through the mid-season draft. How was your experience going into that professional level?
In all honesty, I think it was pretty seamless. Like, being at Pure Thunder, I had some experience training with Freo. Like, obviously through that alignment connection, I got to train alongside the Freo boys. And one of my idols growing up, Nat Fife, was a guy who I happened to play on through the trial games and things like that throughout that time. So I guess I grew aware of what was expected at the level, or what a day in the life sort of looked like. So I wouldn't say it was a massive shock or anything like that. If anything, it was probably something in my own power. Like, the fitness and training side of things was always something I thrived in or did well in. So yeah, there was no real shocks to it, but I will say it didn't obviously go the way I anticipated or wanted it to go personally, but that's not to mean that I wasn't suited or good enough to be there either.
Is there any change in environment from amateur to waffle to professional? Do you feel like there's more support for you personally at a professional level? I've found I never played at that top level, but playing amateur and then going to a semi-professional level, I noticed a big change in even perhaps how sometimes toxic the environment can be. I remember being dropped from semi-professional level and coming down to amateurs and almost being sledged for going to a higher level. Was
Yeah.
there any of that for you, going up and then going back down?
Not really. I think when you're at an AFL club, those sort of things are scratched out pretty early. I think there's not really someone in the AFL team who's going to ridicule you for wanting to play AFL. I guess it's that concept, no one above you is ever going to hate on you, or someone who's achieved what you want to achieve isn't going to look down upon you for wanting to achieve that. So I think AFL does that well. I think it's probably more of an internal thing. You're being dropped and you're playing at a lower level. But I do think different clubs, different environments kind of dictate their own culture. I'd say I played for a few different teams now, and I think it doesn't necessarily just come from the captains and the leaders of the group either, the coaches and the support staff, and that's kind of what makes a club. I don't really like the word club. I like to say the word community, because I think once you build a community of inclusivity, positivity, trust and respect, I think it's only going to help you thrive. And as I said before, you're in an environment with people trying to lift each other up and help each other get better, because you're only strong as your weakest link. to be successful in a football team, you need everyone on board and wanting to achieve the same thing. So yeah, I do see the point of view. I think some teams can get it horribly wrong, thinking that it's always up to the leaders or the top 5 or 6 are the ones who run the show and that's it, and everyone else is irrelevant. I think those environments I've been a part of are the ones who tend to fall short more often than not.
How hard was it being delisted?
Bit of a different one for me because going into the year, my biggest fear was getting delisted. And the truth of the matter is I never felt settled once I arrived. And I guess that the reason being is because I never got the clarity or the, not validation, but the honest feedback of where I stood and what I was there to do. If I was just filling in or if I was going to be a long-term option, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I never really felt settled. And the way the year unraveled for me, I can't really go into much detail, I'll get in trouble, but
Yeah, that's
it
fine.
was a real, I say this in the most lightest way possible, it was an absolute roller coaster. And there was so many things that unraveled from a personal standpoint, cultural, inclusive standpoint, that really took a toll. And I think I said this earlier, probably the most mentally draining season of football I've ever had, because there's a part where you have the dream and everything's right at your fingertips. But then the other part is it's just not clicking at all. And I think majority of the time I just felt like an outsider. And I think the main reason why is I think I was very misunderstood. And upon reflection, I think knowing my personality and the way I am, I can see how it could be mistaken. But I am also very conscious that I believe I'm a very good person. I think I'm quite fair, I'm honest and respectful. I don't ever disregard anyone or take the piss or joke about things that aren't, funny or amusing. So I feel like I'm a very respectful, level-headed person. I don't think people get to see that layer to me unless they have a good, deeper level conversation with me. So I think the surface level, I think some people are always going to have their assumptions and opinions, and that is absolutely fine. But one thing I have learned from the time is I can see how people may perceive me to be something different than what I am. But on the flip side, ignorance is never a great quality to have. And I think the more you get to know someone deep down, the more it makes sense for who they are as a person. And I think that was a major factor why. And then not to mention the on-field stuff, playing multiple different positions and getting dropped for, let's say, various different reasons and reasons that didn't quite align with a lot of things. And it was just a very draining year. And having a contract trigger at the end of the year and being left out to not hit that one more game. And yeah, by the time I got to the delisting, it was a sense of relief, to be honest. And I don't mean that in a rude or disrespectful way, but the mental toll on that season it was a relief more than anything. And in all sincerity, like there's probably not a good chance I was going to go back anyway. So it was a bit of relief. And we are where we are now, a bit of a sliding doors moment. It didn't go in my favor, and that's so fine. You have many situations in life where it doesn't go your way, but persistence and faith always prevails, and cream rises to the top. And I am where I am now, and some people are where they are now, but time will tell, and we'll see what's what soon.
You said that you were perceived in certain ways. Do you think that's just because of at that top level, you really wanted to prove yourself and you
Yeah.
just were really hungry for an opportunity? And you can sometimes see it in even my career where you see a certain player and you can sometimes think they're a little bit cocky or a little bit arrogant. And then you get to know them, they're amazing people. And it's purely just they have that switch that when they take the field or when they're training, they want to be the best version of themselves out there and they want to show everyone what they can do. And is that pretty similar to your situation?
I think that's pretty spot on. And you know what? Let's go into a little bit of detail. And I think that is exactly what happened with my situation, because as I said earlier, I went through hell and back to get to where I wanted to go, and everything I ever wanted was right there and then. So to finally get there as a 22-year-old, being doubted and ridiculed and told you're not good enough your whole entire life, my perception was I'm coming here not just to take a part, but, be here for a long time. And my training standards and the way I went about it was at a professional level. Like I went in and won the time trials, the gym testing, all the different sort of testings and stuff. So I've kind of blew it out of the water a bit, and that was just through sheer willpower and hard work. And my perception at the time was I'd rather I want to earn respect early, and if we'll worry about getting liked after. But I was so driven to quote unquote make it and play regular AFL footy and be in the team and be a player that's there to stay, that I think a lot of people, like you said, would have perceived that as arrogance or selfishness and probably saw those traits as not desirable in their culture. And the people closest to me would never describe myself in that aspect. But I think being so driven and so focused on just achieving, in my perception, was greatness, but other people would just be playing AFL footy. So I was so driven to make it, I think it probably rubbed people the wrong way. I wouldn't say made anyone insecure, but I just think it can be perceived the wrong way for sure. And, it's the reality of the situation. Sometimes the first impression is most important. And I never blame anyone else for my, downfalls in life. I take absolute accountability, and I'm understanding there's probably an element where I had to probably pull the brakes on and enjoy it a bit more and enjoy getting to know the people around me as opposed to just keeping the sole goal of just making it. Yeah, to answer your question, I think it was a pretty spot on analysis. And I think that's the way I was perceived, probably selfish, arrogant, hard to get along with. But in reality, I was there for absolute genuine reasons, and that was to make it and to become the player I wanted to be and the player that I always dreamt and visualized myself to be. And like I said, sliding doors moments, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. And that's life. It's not fair, never has been, never will be. So many people around the world go through far worse than what I have. So I turn to gratitude and I turn to faith. And like I said, I think persistence and faith overcomes a lot. And I think the time will tell, and we'll see where we're at in a few months' time.
Do you conduct yourself differently now, knowing what you know from your past experience? Obviously, you've just said that you go in and it's not a level of arrogance or cockiness, it's a level of wanting to prove yourself. And that can come off as perhaps cocky or arrogant. Do you conduct yourself differently now to not give off that same sort of first impression to new clubs or new individuals at all?
A little bit, not entirely, because I never want to lose the drive or ambition to do it. And that's essentially what helped me overcome to get there in the first place. But as I said before, I think the mistake that I made was not investing in relationships and wanting to build friendships out of it. So I guess coming to Subi, that was a lot of my focus, has been a bit of coming from the level above, has been a role model and not being a spokesperson, not trying to tell everyone what to do or be an authoritative sort of voice, but just be someone who can help there, be a role model, be a good teammate, and just, my individual goals are going to be my individual goals, and I'm not going to apologize for wanting to achieve something for myself. But I think probably just more investing in the cultural side of things. And like I said, that was probably my mistake because of how driven I was, but I'm never going to apologize for being driven and wanting to achieve goals. But I can always, as I said, take accountability and make adjustments. And that's what we're doing. I absolutely love where I am now. The people are amazing, and I think we're building something really good at Subi. And it's a long pre-season, but I look forward to getting in sooner rather than later and seeing in what's what, basically.
I want to read you some statistics that I found from the Sydney Swans in terms of their draftees. So since the AFL drafts begun, there has been, in 1981 to 82, there's been 291 players drafted to the Sydney Swans. 154 players, which is about 53%, never played at that AFL level, right? So they get drafted and they never actually get a game. How can we kind of speak to younger athletes coming through the systems and educate them about these numbers without discouraging them? Because, of course, we've spoken even before the podcast about there's a life outside of football. There are other things other than football. Obviously, that's your dream, your goal. You want that to be your career. But how can we kind of translate that to them without sounding like we're trying to, as you described earlier, people telling you that you can't do it?
Beat the dream.
How do you do that?
I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but fuck the numbers. Who cares what the numbers are? Because the reason why I say that is because what is the result of quitting or not wanting to achieve it?
Not getting there.
Like you quit and then it's like, And as I said before, you live with a what if. What if I just tried a bit harder this preseason? What if I just worked with this senior player and locked in and actually tried your best? Not do your training, go home and move on and worry about your other things, like actually genuinely wanting to do it. So when I grew up, I heard the numbers too. I heard the percentage of players from Albany who grew up and played AFL was 0.00 whatever. Like who cares? I was always like, I don't care. I'm the guy who's going to do it, and I am going to jump over fire to make sure I do it. And that was just the difference in all sincerity. Like I don't describe myself as a special talented player. I'm far from it. The one thing I had was that unwavering willingness to want to do it, and the training and the work ethic and all that sort of thing. So a message to young guys is figure out how much you actually want to do it, first and foremost. But second of all, balance life out as well. When I was younger, I was just so one-dimensional football, and it probably unraveled me just because of the mental pressure you put on yourself and the expectations of performance. So a thing I always use is everything in moderation. Have a balance, have your social life, have uni or a trade or whatever it is you want to do. But always keep the main thing the main thing. And one thing that I have taken away from it is live a life where you're proud of yourself. That is more important than anything, because playing on the MCG and debuting against Kerno Mackay and playing against Carlton was such a euphoric, special moment. But the feeling that topped that was being proud of myself and knowing that I just absolutely gave everything of myself to do it. And it wasn't necessarily the achievement, the top of the mountain, the euphoric moment of debuting. It was actually more just enduring the hardships and the journey along the way. So I feel like instead of chasing an outcome, it's enjoying the process of getting there. Not necessarily enjoying it, but in overcoming the hardship getting there, because the feeling and the sense of being proud of yourself and knowing that you gave everything to it is more euphoric than the actual achievement itself. And it may sound crazy to some people, but speaking from experience, and that's how I've perceived it. And now coming off a list and, in a non-arrogant way, still believing I should be there and should be playing AFL, I have this sense of pride and being proud of myself because I went through everything I went through to get there. And that to me is so special, as opposed to just the accolades and everything else that come with it. Because the accolades are great, don't get me wrong. Like I love accolades, but the pride and the person you become is priceless.
Well, I guess it's that, what's the price of going after what you really want? Is it judgment? Is it someone sort of wiggling their finger in
It's
front
funny
of
you
your
brought
face?
this up because I actually was doing a TikTok about this on the way here. It's the perceivement of failure and judgment. And it's like, for me, what is more scary is growing up and being a product of what I've grew up around. What if? Like, what if I could have done this, I should have done that. And it's amazing how many people I've grown up around, my friends, dads or uncles, whatever, just different sorts of people. The pain and the regretness and that perception of what if is way more painful than, a few mean comments on social media for starting a business or something. Like for me personally, I've started a personal brand and a business in this space, helping young athletes or young people, not even footballers, just all sports people trying to get to where they want to go, and using my story or my small platform as a force for good and helping people. And it's like anything, you're always going to be hated. You're always going to be, some people are going to have their comments or think you're a weirdo or what you're doing is cringe and all the rest of it. But it's like, I always said to myself, especially coming from Melbourne back to Perth, I said, I'd much rather take a leap of faith and chase something that's going to potentially change my life forever than play conservative mediocrity and sit there and go, what if? All because of a fear of judgment or failure. To me, it's not even really a real concept. Like failure is a lesson. It's not the end result of anything. Losing is, you're allowed to lose. Losing's fine. But failure is a lesson. It's not the end result of your pursuit.
It interests me so much, the fear of judgment, because everyone experiences it, I feel. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be, you mentioned Nat Fyfe earlier, who's probably one of the greatest of all times. I can guarantee that he's probably had some self-doubt and probably fear of judgment on doing certain things within his career, even though everyone looks to him as an icon. And I actually had this thought the other day. I mentioned to you earlier that, I want to run a marathon. If I got 100 people at that event cheering me on and there was, let's say, 5 to 10 people telling me that I can't finish that marathon, it's probably not going to affect me much because I had those 100 other people there. But it's completely different on an online sense. You mentioned the negative comments. Why do you think we're so drawn to people who, even if there is a surplus of positive comments and people actually backing us, why do you think we're so gravitated towards people who perhaps do make those judgments online?
One thing I always say is don't seek validation from someone you wouldn't go to for advice. And negativity is always around us. And I think people are drawn to it because it's negative and it's meant to bring you down. And everything in the world has an equal and opposite force. And some people are going to look at it and be discouraged by it and be brought down by it, or it will question their pursuit of what they're doing, because everyone wants to be loved, everyone wants to be praised for what they do. But I've almost come accustomed to loving it, because I actually like the idea of not having a war, but just like having something to prove, or having people who don't want to see you succeed, because the feeling of finally getting there and doing it, it is so good. Like when I debuted, when I went through an AFL, once I finally achieved it, I actually sat back and imagined, like, what would all those coaches and all those different players and all those people be thinking right now? Like, I'm running around the MCG playing this game, and they're probably sitting at home watching this. So it's like, who actually wins in the end of the day? Like, you win when you succeed and when you do it. And as I said before, it's cringe until it works. So, and even with the content side of things, like with my business, I've been following a guy who runs an account called Higher Up Wellness. And the concept he says is every video you make is a lottery ticket, because you only need one or two to take off and then your life could change. And that's exactly how it works. And I guess being in different rooms and meeting different people, the different people I've met who've got status or fame or whatever, they're not overly impressive people. They're just normal people who either refuse to quit or disregarded judgment and didn't have that fear of that. They just kept pursuing and kept doing it and trusted the process. Like, I look at people like Prime Train, and like the way he was ridiculed early on, look at him now. It's like, oh, how'd you do it? Like, I admire the guy. I think he's exceptional what he's done. I love UFC. I love that sort of stuff. Alexander Volkanovski, who's our Australian fighter, when he first won the belt, everyone hated him because he took it off their favourite fighter. He was this, he was that. Now everyone loves him because he kept going through the fire and kept proving himself and succeeding, and got to a point where everyone saw who he was as a person. Now they love him. So I think you got to perceive it as a stepping stone. Unfortunately, we live in a society where it's a tall poppy syndrome, or crabs in the bucket theory, or whatever you want to call it. But I think people only ridicule you early on because it's different and it's weird and it's cringe. But I think once you make it, everyone will praise you and make sure to get around to you. Some people will continuously try and hate, but, fuck them. It's always going to be part of them. And as you said before, having your inner circle, your friends there to support you, that far outweighs a few external people you've never even met, never even come across, who know your name, but you don't know who they are, and they want to ridicule you. So, as I said, fuck them.
You're only crazy until it works. And then all of a sudden you've got a lot of momentum behind you.
Absolutely.
No one can sort of bring you down from there.
Absolutely, my friend.
You mentioned Blight Development, your sort of personal brand.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do through that?
This is kind of an ambition of mine that I've always wanted to pursue. And as I said before, coming from Melbourne back home, I'd rather take a leap of faith in trying to do something good and great and build a profile and build a presence, rather than play the conservative approach and go back to a job I probably don't love and just sit in mediocrity. Like, I want to have an impact. I want to have, I don't want to say fame, but just like have people know and respect my name and have it mean something and do good for younger people or just people in general, really. So the thought behind it was, before I got drafted, I was a teacher, a high school teacher. I've almost finished a degree on that last little hurdle. And then obviously the sporting background, the professional background, I thought, well, I've been trying to do business. I've always loved business and entrepreneurship, always wanted to do it. So I got to a stage where I just put the two together and I guess confined it and trialed and error and planned a few different ways. And I've used it more as a bit of a personal brand, but also a platform to try and do good. So for young people, young athletes, or people in general who want to improving their health, fitness, mindset. I have a mentoringship program as well where I look to try and mentor younger boys or younger athletes, younger people, younger girls, or whoever really in that space, because I feel like my story is unique. And like I said before, if I didn't go through what I went through before, it wouldn't be interesting. Like everyone will gravitate towards my story because it's unique and it's different. And as you said before, the percentages of people actually playing AFL and getting there is so little. So to see someone who did it the hard way and endured it in the hardest way possible, it will resonate with a lot more people. So I want to be a force for good. I want to help as many people as possible and just build a platform that is long and sustainable. Like I want to have a few different elements. Like I want to bring a community together. I want to help athletes. I want to help people prove their health and fitness. As I said before, I was never the most talented player, but one thing I always had was work ethic, drive, the athleticism, and that was just purely built off hard work. So I feel like I have a lot of elements and a lot of things to give in that space. So yeah, I thought I'd design it, build this brand, build this business, and try and get some clients and help people. And the ambition is to eventually make that my full-time role, full-time work, and just keep adding elements, keep building and get to a point where, I'm successful in that space. As I said, I'm very business entrepreneurial minded now, more than ever, especially. And I feel like this is my skill set. This is the area that I will do well in outside of football. And yeah, having the teaching background, the mentoring side, like I feel like I have a lot of skills in that space to help people. So yeah, I'm in kind of that end of year now where it's Christmas and everyone's winding down and doing what they're doing, but this is content now and I'm hoping for it to really explode in the next few weeks, and that to me would be amazing. So yeah, anyone out there, check the links, look at it all, because it's going to be good.
Well, if it's possible, I'll definitely chuck some links down in the description and everything like that so people can access to it. Look, man, if there's one sort of lesson that someone can take from today's discussion from you, what would you want them to take away if they remember one thing?
As I said before, don't seek validation from someone you wouldn't take advice from. No one above you is ever going to hate on you. No one who's achieved what you want to achieve is going to disregard you for wanting to achieve that. An AFL footballer isn't going to ridicule someone who's trying to play AFL. Like that's just the nature of the world. And yeah, just stop putting so much, validation or so much emphasis on external noise and external people. I think by now a lot of people would understand their family and close friends and stuff are the ones who mean the most to them. So who cares about people who aren't in that circle, I guess. And I also think just believe in yourself and believe what you're doing. I guess my example is being a football player, a football person, but it's the same concept for wanting to be a lawyer or a doctor or a business owner or whatever it is you want to do. The concept's the same. The belief and the faith and the persistence is key. And as I said, I'm nothing special. I'm not talented. I wasn't born special, but you can do special things with a lot of hard work and persistence. So those are the main messages. And be a force for good, live a good life, be genuine, and the universe not the universe, God will reward you in the long run. So yeah, just be good.
Beautiful message, man. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully best of luck in everything that you're doing, and who knows, may have you on in the future as well.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful, man.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it.